Hi, I'm Diane. If you're looking for your next crochet project, I've got one that I think you'll love. So grab your favorite yarn and a cuppa and let's make some beautiful crochet. In today's video, I will be showing you how I made this beautiful ripple stitch blanket with puff stitch detail. Sometimes the ripple or chevron stitch can be quite confusing with the increasing and decreasing, crocheting 2 stitches together and different numbers to count. So I've simplified this pattern so even the adventurous beginner would be able to follow along. This is a large sofa throw size measuring 50 by 62 inches, and for this I used 800 grams of yarn. As always, I will walk you through each stitch so you can easily learn how to crochet this blanket. I've also made another video on the ripple stitch blanket similar to this one but without the puff stitches, so if you want to check out that video I have put a link in the description for you. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already, and please leave any questions in the comments section where I will reply to any queries. Okay, let's get to crocheting this lovely blanket. So in the blanket that you've just seen, these are the colours that I used. They are green, lilac, yellow, blue, taupe and a dusky pink. You can obviously use any colour or as many colours as you like. It is a category 3 lightweight yarn or a double knit weight yarn. You will need some stitch markers, a tape measure, scissors and a darning needle to sew in your ends. And today we're using a size I, or if you can see that on the camera, it's 5.5 millimeters in actual size for the crochet hook. And I use US crochet terminology for the crochet stitches. So let's get started. I'm starting with the green colour and we're going to make a slip knot in whichever way you prefer, and the foundation chain is in multiples of 17. So yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through, and there's your chain stitch. And count every stitch and count 17 stitches. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 and 17. And each 17 stitches is one up and down of your ripple stitch. So keep going in multiples of 17 until you have reached the width that you want your blanket to be. If you're following along this pattern exactly, you will need to chain 136 chains. So keep going, pause the video here and make your foundation chain. Okay, so for row 1, we're going to start by making a double crochet into the 4th chain from the hook. So 1, 2, 3, 4, yarn over, hook in, yarn over, pull up a loop, 3 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over and pull through 2. Now for the counting in this pattern, always remember the number 8. And this chain here and this chain here counts as chain 1, stitch 1 and stitch 2. And we want 8. So double crochet into the next stitch, and that is 3, and then 4. We're doing double crochets. Keep going till you've counted 8. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Six, 7 and 8. And once you have 8 double crochets, including your turning chain on the end, we're going to chain 2, and that chain 2 is going to is always going to be at the top of the up and down of the ripple stitch. Now we're going to start our 8 count again, and the stitch 1 of your 8 count is a double crochet into that same stitch. So make a double crochet in there, and count 1. And now we want 8, so make a double crochet into the next stitch, and that will be 2, double crochet into the next stitch, that will be 3. And keep going, counting 8, up to 8. That's 4. 5. 6. 7 and 8. Now for the dip, we are literally just going to skip 2 stitches. So skip just worked into this one, so skip this stitch, and make your next double crochet into the third. So skip 2, and when you yarn over, count 1, 2, and in the next double crochet in there, and that is, you start counting again. So that's 1, keep going, that's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and 8. And on your 8th stitch, on the way back up, then chain 2. So if you're not sure, just check back to your work, and if you've skipped 2 stitches, you know you're on the way back up, and if you've just done a chain 2, you're going back down. So on your 8th stitch on the way back up, chain 2, and now we're going on the way back down again, and we always start on the way back down making a double crochet into that same stitch you've just worked. So yarn over, hook into that same stitch, and count 1. That's 1 of your next 8. Find your next stitch, double crochet in there. That's 2. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and 8. It's always going to be 8. So if you have a look at your work, you'll see that you've just done the top, and we're going downwards, and to do the dip, we literally just skip 2 stitches. So yarn over, ready for your double crochet, count 1, 2, hook in the next, make your double crochet, and count 1. Oh, that one's been a bit tricky there. That's 1, and then hook in the next stitch. 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and we're back at the top of the up and downs of the stitch pattern. Now obviously if you're making this, if you're not making a swatch to start with, you're going straight in for the whole blanket, you can pause the video here because I'm reaching the end of my swatch. So just a quick reminder here, you've looked back at the end of the the back where you've just done a dip and you've come 8 stitches up. So at the top we always chain 2 on stitch 8 going up, and then the next one is count 1 of your next 8 in the same stitch. See, it's in the same stitch. And then, so pause the video here, keep going all the way along your row 1 using your 8 count, and I will meet you as you're approaching the end of the row. So we're approaching the end of row 1. We've just done the peak of the up and down and we are working our way back down to the last few stitches I have, and you can count them. If you start your count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 7, and to finish the row, number 8 into that last chain. Very simple. No increasing 2 stitches together or anything of that nature. Right, we are going to move on to row 2. And this is our repeat row for your entire blanket. So we are going to start every row by chaining 2. 1, 2, and turn your work. And the same number applies here, 8 stitches, and your chain 2 counts as stitch 1. Now, to maintain a straight edge, we're not going to do any kind of crocheting 2 stitches together. We are quite simply going to skip this stitch here and this stitch here and work into the 3rd stitch, if you like, if you count that 1, 2, into that 3rd stitch, yarn over, make your double crochet, and you'll notice that it's made that slightly slanted. Don't worry, that's what you want. And that now is stitch 2. So 1, 2. But from now on, we're not skipping any stitches. We're going straight, carrying on with our counting 8 all the way up to here. So that's 2, and into the next stitch, make a double crochet, 3, 4, 5, 6, and you'll see number 7 will be into this stitch here, 7, and we're going to make stitch 8, which is our first of our puff stitches, into this chain space here. So from now on, stitch 8 is a puff stitch, and to do that I'm going to show you nice and slowly. So you've got 7 stitches all the way up here. Stitch 8 is always going to be a puff stitch. Yarn over, keep your stitches nice and loose, hook into that chain space, pull up a loop, yarn over, hook in, pull up another loop. We're going to do this, keep going, yarn over, pull up another loop, 3, yarn over, pull up another loop, and you should have 9 stitches on your hook. 3, 6, 9. So that is 9 stitches on your hook, yarn over, pull through or wiggle them through, all 9 stitches on your hook. Then chain 2. So that is your 8 stitches, counting, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and the puff stitch is 8. Chain 2 and stitch 1 on the way back down is also a puff stitch. So yarn over, hook into that same space and pull up a loop, and keep going till you've got 9 loops on your hook. I think it's 4 times. So that's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There we go. Yarn over and pull through all of those loops. Then just chain 1. And there you've created a little bit of interest in the fact that we've got some puff stitches in your Chevron Stitch Blanket. Okay, so now we're going back down, but this is stitch 1 of your 8 count. So yarn over, find your next stitch, which is right here, to the top, your very first stitch here. Make a double crochet, and that's stitch 1 of your 8 count. So 1, 2, and keep counting now as you go down. So that's 3, 4, 6, 7 and 8. And again, skip 2 chains, yarn over, 1, 2, hook into the next and start your next 8 count. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and don't forget your 7th stitch goes into the top of this one here, 7, and stitch 8 is your puff stitch. So yarn over, hook in, pull up a loop, yarn over, hook in, pull up a loop, yarn over, hook in, pull up a loop. That's 3, 6, yarn over, pull up a loop till you have 9 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through all 9 loops. That is stitch 8 and then chain 2. Okay, so let's carry on, and we are on our way back down, and we've chained 2, and we're back onto our 8, stitch 1 of our 8 count, and stitch 1 will always be on the way down, will always be another puff stitch. So yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull up a loop, one more time, it's 4 times, or until you have 9 loops on your hook. Yarn over and pull through all of those loops that are on your hook, and then chain 1. So that's stitch 1 of your next 8 count. So 1, and then find your next stitch, which is this one here. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and if if you look back and you see you've just done the top and you're on your way down, you can see that now we need to skip 2 stitches. So yarn over, skip 2 stitches and start your 8 count again. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and 7, always into that side. It's like a V stitch. 7, and if you remember, stitch 8 on the way up is always the puff stitch into this chain 2 space. So yarn over, hook in, pull up a loop, do that 4 times. Or until you have 9 stitches on your hook. Yarn over, pull through, wiggle your hook, chain 1 and 2, and that is stitch 8 of your 8 count. Now we're going all the way back down. If you wanted to pause the video here, if you've got a longer row to do than the swatch that I'm doing, you can pause the video here and continue on. For those that are ready, we can continue to the end of this row, and I'll show you how to finish every single row. So we've got, this is stitch 8 of your 8 count, chain 2, and we're starting stitch 1 of our 8 count. At the top of the peak is always a puff stitch, another puff stitch into that chain 2 space. So make your puff stitch, and chain 1, and that is stitch 1. Find your next stitch, make a double crochet, that is 2. Let's grab some yarn here. Three, 4, 5, 6, and you'll see that there are quite a few stitches left. 7, go up to your 7, and you still want your 8 count. It's always going to be 8, don't worry. All we're going to do at the end of every row is you will do your 8, 7, count your 8 count, and when you get to stitch 7, you're going to skip this 1 stitch here, and that will keep your edges straight. And we're doing this instead of trying to crochet 2 stitches together. Like I say, I've simplified this stitch as best, this stitch pattern as best as I can. So just to clarify, you're on your last downward slope. You've gone 1 with your puff stitch, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now if you put your 8 stitches in here, that wouldn't work. We need to skip that stitch here, yarn over, and find your turning chain here, and place it in the second chain up. So 1, 2, place your hook in there and make your stitch 8. There we go. And it will start to slope, but because of the nature of the pattern with the zigzag, it needs to start sloping that way. It actually creates a straight edge, and the further in you go, you'll see what I mean. I will show you later on in this video what I mean. So we need to repeat row 2 over and over, but I am just going to show you another row to show you how to do these puff stitches one more time, because this is slightly new to you. So always chain 2 to start every row, and then turn your work. And don't forget, this chain 2 always acts as your first stitch. Stitch 1. Okay, so we are going to start the row by skipping this stitch, and working into the next. So yarn over, skip 2 stitches, 1, if you count this one at the bottom of your chain 2 as a stitch, you're skipping 2. So yarn over, 1, 2, hook in, make your double crochet, and that is stitch 2, a 1 and 2 of your 8 count. So now we continue that's 3, 4, 5, 6, and you'll see on the way up, stitch 7 will be in the top of the puff stitch. 7, and always at the top stitch 8 will be your puff stitch into that chain 2 space. So make your puff stitch, until you have 9 loops on the hook. Yarn over and pull through all 9 loops that are on your hook. That is stitch 8, chain 2, and we are back to the beginning of our 8 count, going back down, and stitch 1 on the way back down is always a puff stitch. So yarn over, make another puff stitch in that chain 2 space. Nine loops on your hook, yarn over and pull through all of those loops on your hook and chain 1, and that is stitch 1. Now on the way back down, stitch 2 does not, I repeat, does not go into the puff stitch, but the next one. So stitch 2 in there, three, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And you'll see that 8th stitch is just before you're skipping the 2 stitches you're going to skip. So skip 2, double crochet into the next and start your 8 count again. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 will be into the top of your puff stitch from the row below. So that's 7. As always, stitch 8 will be your puff stitch into the chain 2 space. Nine loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through all 9 loops on your hook, chain 2, and you will begin your 8 count again, going back down. So your stitch 1 on the top here will always be a puff stitch. So put your next puff stitch in that chain 2 space. And then just chain 1. On the way back down, we do not, I repeat, do not put your second stitch into the top of the puff stitch, the row below. We put it into the next stitch. So yarn over, hook into the next stitch, and count 2, because that one is stitch 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And then you can see here's your 2 stitches that you want to skip. So yarn over, skip 2, hook into the next, and that is stitch 1 of your next 8 count. That's going all the way up. So do your double crochets counting up to 8 all the way up, making sure that stitch 7 goes into the top of your puff stitch, and stitch 8 is your first puff stitch, chain 2, and then you're going to work back down with your stitch 1 being a puff stitch, chain 1, and then on the way back down, don't put your second stitch into the top of the puff stitch from the row below. Do not put it into the next one. So pause the video here, rewind it if you do need to remind yourself just how to do this, and I will meet you as you're approaching the end of this row. So we are approaching the end of the row, and as you can see, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And at the end of every row, we skip 1 stitch, this stitch here, and we put stitch 8 into the second chain up, into the sort of the corner of that chain to make stitch 8. There we go. Pull the camera out a little bit so you can see. So there you go, you can see it coming together here. And you can see, because we are skipping a stitch or 2 at the 2 stitches at the beginning, because it's sloping against this slope, it will create a straight edge going upwards, And the same this side, because we're skipping a stitch that's going against this slope, and it will start to slope, this edge will slope that way, sort of counteracting this slope downwards, and that creates a straight edge on your blanket. So keep going and repeating this row 2 or row 3 if you prefer. In the blanket that you saw at the beginning of this video, I made 6 rows before I started changing colours. So make 6 rows in total, and then I will show you how we start to change colour, beginning with the little puff stitch being prominent in the first row of your next colour. I'll just grab the blanket and show you what I mean. Okay, so here is the blanket, and you'll see that as row 1, but we've done 6 rows. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or if we count up the middle, we've done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And the next bit that I'm going to show you is just a little bit of detail. And you don't have to do this if you don't want. You can switch straight to the next colour, because this is probably the most complicated row, is because we're working with two strands, the green and the yellow. We're working another row of the green in the up, the down and up and down. But when it comes to the puff stitch, we are switching to the yellow just for the puff stitch, so that you can see it just adds just that little bit of detail with the yellow kind of blending in before we go straight all into the full yellow. And then we do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 rows of the yellow, and then we'll do the same again where we've got that little bit of detail where we're working with the 2 strands, the yellow and the lilac, because when we come to the puff stitch section, we'll switch it over to the lilac just for the puff stitches. Like I say, you don't have to do this next part. You can literally change colour straight to the next colour, and it will look just as beautiful. It was just a little bit of detail that I wanted to put into my blanket. You can see here I've done another 6 rows, and on the 7th we're working with the 2 different colours, having the puff stitches sort of blending in to the lilac, and I've done this all the way up the blanket. So that's keep going for another, till you've got 6 rows in total in the green. And I will show you how you can do this little detail. It's very pretty. And once you get the hang of it, you'll be good to go. I'll show you step by step. So I'll meet you back here when you've got 6 rows of this ripple stitch. So we're approaching the end of row 6, and we're going to be changing colour. Now we can change colour directly into the next colour without adding that detail that I've just shown you. And to do that, all you need to do is get your next colour ready, is start to make your last stitch. Wool on my fingers. So yarn over and pull through 2. Leave 2 loops on your hook and drop the green yarn and bring in your next colour, which in this case is the yellow. Hook it over your crochet hook and finish your stitch in the yellow. Then you simply chain 2, turn your work and continue in your next colour. So that is how you change colour if you just wanted to do it in the very simple method, which is absolutely fine and will look perfectly lovely. And I will show you how to just add this little detail that I showed you just earlier. So what we do is we completely finish our row, putting in your last double crochet into that last stitch. Now chain 2, so I need to bring the camera in slightly, chain 2, and then I'm going to put a stitch marker in here just to hold that chain 2. Then grab your yellow yarn and at the bottom of the chain 2, put your hook through these 2 legs of the stitch here. Put your yellow yarn on the hook and pull it through. So you can see we're literally just going to attach it at the bottom of the row, and I'm just going to tie a simple overhand knot just to secure that colour on there. Okay, so now what we're doing is we're going to be working with the next row holding both strands, the green and the yellow. So I'll take my stitch marker out. So we've chained 2 and turn your work, holding your strands of wool behind you. So we're ready to start our next row, and we're going to be working with the green, but we're going to have the yellow yarn following all the way along. So with the green, yarn over, find your first stitch, which you skip this one and this one, hook in and go underneath the yellow, yarn over with the green and pull up a loop with the green and make your second double crochet stitch. But remember that chain 2 acts as your first stitch. So it's the same pattern. We're just holding 2 pieces of yarn and we're going to work this yellow into the fabric. So yarn over again, hook into the next stitch, underneath that yellow, and make your next stitch. That's 3, and keep going, weaving that yellow yarn so it's following along, ready for when we use it to do the puff stitch. So when you put your hook in, put it in and under the yellow yarn as well, and then grab your green, pull it back underneath the yellow yarn and through, yarn over, make your double crochet. It's a little bit tricky to start with if you've never done this before, but stick with it, take your time, go nice and slowly, and you'll soon get the hang of it. So underneath the yellow as well, grab your green, back underneath the yellow, make your double crochet, and we're doing the usual 8 stitches. And on stitch 7, we're going to start incorporating the yellow yarn. So yarn over, hook into stitch 7, pull up a loop with the green, yarn over and pull through 2 loops. Then drop the green yarn down and pick up the yellow yarn and finish stitch 7 with the yellow. Just put it down kind of nice and secure. Now we're working with the yellow, and we're going to hold the green yarn as we're working, and we're doing the puff stitch. So yarn over, hold your chain 2 space and the green yarn, and put your hook in and make your puff stitch with the yellow yarn. So we're going into the chain 2 space and underneath the green yarn. So 3, 4, 5, 6, that's 9 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through, chain 2, and then that is your 8 count 8 stitches, and we're going to carry on with our next puff stitch in the yellow yarn. So yarn over, holding your green yarn against the work, make your next puff stitch, and then chain 1, and there you've started the row in the green, and we've added the little detail of the puff stitches being in the yellow. So now we drop down the yellow yarn and pick up the green yarn, yarn over, and holding the yellow yarn against the fabric, start using the green yarn again for your double crochets on the way back down. Just snug that one a little bit tighter. So under the yellow, yarn over with the green, back under the yellow and pull up a loop, make your double crochet. And keep going like this until you get to until you've done your next 8 stitches. One more. So we've got to our chain 2, skipping 2 chains, which we do as normal, but we just carry the yarn along the material. So yarn over, skip 2 stitches, hook into the next one, ready for your next 8 count. And you can hardly see it. You can see it slightly, but it does blend quite nicely. So you do your next lot of counting 8 stitches, carrying the yellow yarn along with it. Like I say, it's slightly tricky if you've never worked with this method before, but I thought it was worth it for that little detail on the blanket. Okay, so we're up to stitch 7. So yarn over, hook in and pull up a loop with the green yarn. Yarn over, pull through 2. Then drop the green yarn, pick up the yellow and finish stitch 7 in the yellow yarn. Pull it snug, otherwise the stitch will be quite loose. So we're working with the yellow yarn now. So we're making our puff stitch, so yarn over, keep hold of that green yarn, we're carrying that along, and make your puff stitch with the yellow. Then chain 2, so that's your 8 stitches, and we're on to our next 8 count. Get a little bit more wool here. So we're on to stitch 1 of our next 8 count, and it's in the yellow yarn. Yarn over, keep hold of that green yarn against the fabric, make your next puff stitch. Chain 1, and then we drop the yellow yarn and pick up the green. Yarn over, hold the yellow yarn against the fabric, make your next double crochet. And again, just pull both strands when you've changed colour, just to tighten that stitch up. And keep going just like this. And you can see pretty little detail to the blanket. So I'm going to carry on now till the end of the row, and I'll show you how to finish this row and move on to the next. So we're coming up to the end of this row, and you see little yellow puff stitches in amongst the green. So I'm going to put my last, well, hang on, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, stitch 7 in there. And to finish with the 2 colours of wool, yarn over, and it's the same method. Find your chain 2, hook in using the green yarn, and then yarn over and pull through 2, drop the green yarn and pick up the yellow, finish your double crochet with the yellow, give that a little bit of a snug so it tightens the stitch, and then chain 2 with the yellow, so you're moving into your next colour now, chain 2, and then you can actually cut the green yarn off now, leaving some wool for your sewing in your ends. So we're done with the green, and we carry on now exactly the same as before, but we've changed colour now completely. So you've chained 2, turn your work, and you can see on the back of the work, you can slightly see the yellow there, but when you've worked plenty of colours, it blends in really well. So continue now with your 8 count. So that is 1, skip that one, and 2, all the way up to your puff stitch,
and put your hook. Stitch 6 will go into that half of its green, half of its yellow. And stitch 7 into the top of your puff stitch. And then we're just back to normal there. Putting in your 2 into stitch 8 as your puff stitch. Chain 2. So there's your 8 count, and going back down the slope, we start with stitch 1, which is a puff stitch. Chain 1 and continue down with your next 8 count. So hopefully that explains how you do this little detail. Of course, you don't have to do that. If you want to just switch colours straight to your next colour, that's absolutely fine. But it does look quite pretty, and it makes just that little extra detail. So that is your pattern for this blanket, and you will continue in this manner. So you will do another 6 rows in 6 rows in the yellow, or your chosen colour, and then switch to your next colour, either with a little added detail or not. And you keep going in this way, 6 rows in each colour, and until your blanket is the length that you want it to be. So this is the width, and this way keep going until your blanket is as long as you want it to be. So I do hope you found this helpful in creating a chevron or ripple stitch, whichever you prefer to call it. If you've got any questions whatsoever, please put them in the comment section. I'm happy to help, and please give this video a big thumbs up. And if you haven't already subscribed, please do so. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on any of my future content. So happy crocheting, and I'll see you next time.